I'm Jackie Doucette, and I'm on a mission to discover exactly what life is like beyond retirement. Join me while I chat with people who've already done it, who've retired to something rather than from something. Let's find out together exactly what's waiting for us when we say goodbye to that 9 to 5. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Retirement. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Margaret Agard, who's a reiki healer and a Christian mystic. She's also a former executive in the high-tech industry and the author of a series of memoirs called In His Footsteps. We spent a little bit of time figuring out what we talk about today, and Margaret feels that the best thing that we can talk about is to discuss how to find your best life. And I think that this is going to fit well into my themes for the season, because we're probably going to hit a little bit on confidence, freedom, and possibly generosity too. Margaret, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Jackie. I'm happy to be here.
So I always start off by asking people to tell us a little bit about themselves, a quick summary to tell us how you got to where you are now, because most people didn't start out aiming at where they are.
Well, that's true. Although I had a funny thing happen, Jackie, but I'll get to. Remind me, I'm going to talk about the lake. At one point, I was a single mom with 8 children. Half were in high school, half were in college, but they were living at home because 8 children. Even though I was an executive in the high-tech industry, I did make a good living, but again, 8 children. So the way I helped them with school was they stayed home. I could go to a school nearby. And at the same time, the high-tech industry was changing. We're talking, like 30 years ago. 25, 30 years ago. And at the time, you just had to be smart in math and stuff. And some people's brains just clicked off when I said the word math, but I'm not going to say any more about it, except to say I was. But at some point, I thought, I have to get my degree. It's at the point now, if you really want to move up in the industry, you better have that degree. And I only had a year left. So I decided to go back and finish the degree, single mom, 8 kids, sole financial support, and working in the high-tech industry. And I knew how to set priorities. I knew how to say, here's what I'm going to do, and what's the most important thing to do today. But at that point in my life, it seemed as if everything was a priority, as if I had 3 full-time jobs, and I was hardly getting any sleep, maybe 4 hours a night. I was in my mid-40s. I was exhausted. I was wake up in the middle of the night in a panic thinking, and I had done what people do, which is to lay out a 20-year plan. I was just kind of reviewing it the other day. It was, when my youngest son graduates, then I can really move ahead in my industry because then I could travel. And I was in a business that had a 20-year growth span. So they would be looking to move people up. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to build up my 401k. I'm going to get my kids through college. The last 10 years of my life, I'm going to focus on really building my career and my income. And I want to live on a lake. That's what I had written down. I want to live on a lake. So about that point, though, where I was thinking, I don't even know how to get through a day, forget the 20 years. And everything I did, it wasn't quite right. It seemed like I would do a paper for class, and then I would go in and there'd be a note on the door, professor was sick, you don't have to turn in the paper till Friday. And I'd be thinking, there were 6 other things I could have done and put this paper off. Or I'd go into a client and I'd have what they had asked for, and they'd say, we've completely changed our mind. We're still going to pay you for it, but we want you to do it totally different. And I'd think, if I'd only known. And so I started asking, as a Christian, I started saying, well, who knows what's coming? And I thought, I know who knows what's coming. It's God. Like, if I could just see the future, I could do this better. And so that, sort of out of desperation, is when I started going to God every day with my to-do list and saying, what do you want me to do today, God? And I have to shut this down so I'll make those little beepy noises again. And he took over my life because I let him. And the way I let him was to say, what do I need to do today? Now, if you don't believe in God, but you have some sort of sense of intuition or some sense of the divine, however you approach it, that's what I was basically doing. I had everything I was going to do written down on a paper, and then I would just go through, do I And I'd have a thought, not that one, not that one. Do this though. Something else would come up. Do this. And often what came up was, in the middle of all this that I was doing, call somebody. That person just needs you to talk to them. Or take someone part of your meal. Like you just made a big meal, for 10 people, take part of it to somebody. And as I began to do those things, my life really did change. And if I only focused on what God told me to do that day, then what happened is I was finished by 8:00 at night. I could just sit and relax. And I never woke up in the middle of the night worrying that I had left something important undone, because I thought God's got my back. And even if I was going somewhere and I was running late, I would have this thought, don't worry about it. They're probably running late too. Or I lived in the DC area, Washington, DC. And let me just say, traffic is either great or it's horrible. I was either a half hour early or a half hour late. There was no figuring it out. So when I look at that, and I can look at your themes like freedom, confidence, generosity, I was being given all those things, much more free time, confident that what I was doing was the right thing, and also generosity. So what happens is I remarried. I wasn't planning that. It was a thought that came one day where I was doing something else. And the thought came, you're going to get married. You're going to meet the man you're going to marry next fall. This was in February. And I thought, no, thank you. I mean, I've been there, done that. And I have 2 teenage sons. I can't even imagine teenage boys and a stepdad. Like, just don't even see that working out. But eventually I sort of came around and prepared for it and remarried. And my whole life, my little 20-year plan, out the window, completely different life, except I'm looking here today thinking, wait, I live on a lake. So that part worked out. Yeah. And I just, at one point it was, I want you to write your life on the internet. And that turned into my first book. And then we served 2-year missions where we just went out and helped people. And what I thought my life was going to be like was very different. And I love it. I like to say I got the most beautiful, unexpected life I never even knew was possible until I had it.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm really interested. And if there's a couple of other podcasts where people have talked about their Christian faith and how it has guided them, and it interests me. I'm not saying I'm not Christian. I'm not saying I am. It interests me immensely. And I wonder how you can just have the confidence to just let go of all the things that you thought you needed to do and just let them not get done all of a sudden, because you're letting God do the other things.
But often I can ask, you know what, I'm going to have to touch my nose. Sorry. I just will ask, and the confidence grew over time. So I guess I was afraid he'd be like, forget that I had to do dishes and there were bills to be paid, like stuff like that. Like, hello, we don't have angels down here. And so, but that never happened. That never happened. And the things that did happen, I could ask and be told how to handle it instead, or why it didn't. So I'll give you 2 examples. Once I was getting ready to take my books back to the library. And remember, this is 20 years ago, before the internet and everything is so hot. And the thought came, no, don't do that today. You're not going to have time. And I thought, they're due. I mean, honestly, I had to have to pay 10 cents if they were late. But that's kind of how my thinking goes. And it was, no, don't. And then I did say, well, what am I supposed to do about it? And he said, use the phone, just call them and have them renew it. Or I thought, yep, I can do that. That's easy enough. So often the things that I was thinking were important, and that doesn't sound like really important, but it was to me, integrity and all that. And then another day was very similar. We had a business where we were selling things over the internet, and it says right on there, ships next business day. So Monday was a very busy day for us because all the orders from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's like almost half the week, went out Monday morning. And so that was just always at the top of my list. I mean, that was never changed. It was there, do the orders. And one day, as I was doing that, one Monday, it was don't do the orders. And I thought, I'm sorry, God, I'm doing those orders because that's my word on the line. And we said we do the orders next business day, and I'm doing them. I'm ignoring you right now. And so the day was a little crushed. It was a little jammed up because I had that, and the orders did take an hour or two to do. And I got to the post office, and there was a federal holiday, and it was closed. Like when you're working at home, you kind of forget. And all my kids were raised, and you just forget what the holidays are. And so a couple of things like that happen, and you start thinking, yeah. And also phone calls and things. At one point in my life, I was praying for a friend before I remarried. And again, this is when I was extremely busy with school and work and still a single mom. And one of those thoughts came, I want you to take dinner to this woman, Robin, who lived a block away. Well, I didn't really know Robin. I just kind of had seen Robin around. But I thought, okay, so I took a dinner to Robin, and that impressed her so much. She started reaching out to me. We started doing some things together, and we just became best friends. I did this one thing and had this answer to my prayer that I needed a good friend. We became like a third grade best friend, except we had money and could drive. So we're a little better. Yeah, it was great.
I like that.
Yeah. So that's why I say the confidence grew over time. It's not as if I every day said, okay, whatever. After a few years of doing it, I could say yes. And I still have moments where, not moments, but days where I think, I just don't even want to know. I got my own plans and I'm doing them. It doesn't usually last very long.
And is that because?
Because I'm willful and don't like to be right, micromanaged, and I have plans. And as an executive, I say, just tell me what you need done. I'll go handle it. Don't ask me about it. Don't tell me how to do it. That's what I don't need that. And
but you say it doesn't last long. Is that because you start doing the things that you had planned and you realize that they're not really going the way that you thought they were going to go?
For sure. And I don't feel quite as much joy. And what I've learned to do, though, because of my personality, is to do it at night. So to say, what do you want me to do tomorrow? That's what's really happened. And often there will seem like there's going to be big gaps, but I have learned over time that those big gaps mean something's coming and I'm going to be needed to handle. And it can't be a good thing, it'd be a bad thing. This just happened the other day where I only had one thing to do. And it was a pretty simple thing. I mean, I had to do some things. We were taking my husband to the doctor. You get old, things happen. And the one thing I had to do was just reach out to a friend who we've been helping clean up her place and say, which day will work for you? That's all I had to do, was set the time. But while my husband and I were driving to the doctor, he said, I think we need to reach out to this other friend, take her out to lunch and just listen to her, just talk with her. And so that took a couple hours of our time, to go get her. And she agreed, she was willing to do it. So that's the kind of things that happen in the gaps.
Okay. So one of the things that my listeners hear from me a lot is make a list, because that's what I do all the time. When I'm trying to figure out what it is I want to do or what should happen next, I make a list all the time. And I read in your little mini biography on your website that you were a compulsive list maker.
Oh, yeah.
You never came close to accomplishing all the things that you always put on your list.
Oh, it's huge.
And because of that, of course, you're always stressed. You're always thinking this list is getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So, and I know you've said that it isn't like that anymore at all, but let's talk about that a little bit and how the difference came about and how you're feeling now because of not making those lists anymore. Because I think that although I will probably still make lists, maybe there'll be different lists.
I did still make lists, but like I said, I will add things to the list if I'm careful. If I'm not careful, if I just really focus on the list, I'm okay. But what had happened at one point, I literally, it was a legal pad. I don't know, does Canada and the UK are kind of different, but a legal pad is big, it's like, yeah, 15 inches long. And I had 5 pages of things that had to be done on that legal pad. And every day I just look at it and think, what's the most important, and then I would add things all the time. And that's when I really buckled down and started doing this. Here's the kind of list maker I was. If I did something that wasn't on the list, I put it on the list so I could mark it off.
Yep.
I know. Okay, so we're that kind of list maker. And it took me a long time to really trust. But what happened during this time is I couldn't even look at the yellow pad anymore. And I just started going to God every day. What do I have to do? What do I have to do? And one day the thought came, look at the yellow pad. And I thought, I didn't want to look at it. It depresses me. It was like, I want you to look at the yellow pad. So finally I looked at the yellow pad. And as I went through it, I thought, oh, there's nothing left on there. I mean, either things never really had to get done, it didn't matter anymore, or I had done it. I don't know how God does that, but all I know is nothing was on that yellow pad anymore. I didn't have this list hanging over my head.
So it all got accomplished the way it was supposed to. Yeah, the way it needed to be.
Yeah, it was, I liked it. Yeah. But what happens is I just spend a lot of time, the more time, energy, and sometimes finances I was willing to give to whatever God felt needed to be done, the more of my time, energy, and finances he opened up so that I could. After a while, you realize you have all you need and you have lots of time to help other people. Now we're kind of on the other end of the life, because my husband just turned 83, about to turn 84, and got a heart disease. And he's very active, very slender, but just one of those things. So I see us doing less and less to help other people, but still every day there's some way we can help other people. And that's our greatest joy.
I was just going to say, and that I think is probably what you get the most fun out of is seeing someone else helped a little bit. And we do the things we like. I like to write. I get to do that. He likes to garden. He's out there now on his garden, because when I do podcasts, I'm like, no talking in the house. So he's like, I'll just go to the garden. So let's talk a little bit about your books. It's basically a series now, In His Footsteps. Yes. And how did they get started? How did you start writing?
As I said, one day the thought just came. I want you to write your life on the internet. And at that time, this was 97. There's not a lot of blogging or anything like that going on. And I wasn't sure how to do it. So it was one of those things like, okay, how? And then I was led to a website that was actually a private journaling site. And I began to write on there, and people responded. I got an idea of how to write a good story and how to use dialogue, just a lot of things, but by just watching and listening to how people responded. And then after a couple of years of that, the thought came, make this a book. And I thought, I tried to take it and rewrite it. And it was like, no, this is the book. And so the first book, I like to call them Chicken Soup for the Soul, but just one person. So, how the Chicken Soup for the Soul, there's like a 1.5-page story. Yeah. And I thought, okay, so it is kind of following a life and an arc, but the first book really starts with that story of the yellow pad and how I turned my to-do list over to him. And it ends with this thought: I used to try to be good so God would love me. But now I feel so deeply in my heart how much he loves me. And I want other people to feel that same love. And that's why I go out and do good now.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And then the second one, my husband and I basically sold our house, got rid of everything, and spent 4 years just doing mission work. And, we were in Albuquerque, working in the inner city. We were doing a prison ministry. Then we were up in Alaska, north of the Arctic Circle, helping the natives put their, they had a lot of documentation they wanted scanned and stored, and we were helping them with that. just wherever we got sent, and learned so much again. By then, what I would say what I was doing then was 24/7, whatever God wanted. Like, we didn't have any other projects. We didn't have gardens. We were writing books. We were just out helping. I learned a lot. What I share is what I learned, because I'm so terrible spiritually, I have a lot of growth to do. And one of my favorite stories in there is the time I was praying for something. We were in Albuquerque. We were visiting a family that only spoke Spanish. We spoke Spanglish. And some friends had come to help us the first time we met with them to help them. And we said it a second time, and the friends were supposed to come. They didn't come. So we're there struggling. And the whole time I'm there talking my terrible Spanish, I'm praying that those people will go by and see our car and know we need help. But they never came. So the next day I ran into them and said, and they said to us, oh, we drove by that house. And I guess I forgot they were going to come. And they said, we saw your car, and we thought, wow, they have a lot of courage because they really need help. And the thing I left out of the prayer was have them come in. Now you would think, okay, like, what is God, data or something? But I think he was trying to teach me a lesson. It wasn't a terrible thing, but he said, I pray for what you really want. Like, not this nebulous.
Yeah, darn it, come in.
yeah, the whole thing. And then the same thing happens at the end of the book. We're in Alaska. It's like, he likes to make sure you really get the message. And we're in Alaska, cars just go off the road over cliffs, and it seems like every time they slide off the road, they end up on their roofs. I don't know why. They look like little upside down turtles. And so we're driving on this Alaska is huge. It's half the United States, and it only has like 1 million people population, and most are in Anchorage. So we're not in Anchorage, I can tell you. We're driving towards Canada, actually, and no other cars on the road. And all of a sudden our car goes off, and there's a big truck, actually. We were leaving and full of all of our whatever worldly goods we had. And we're kind of half on the road and half on the, whatever you call the side part. And there's a cliff there, and it's snowy and icy. And I'm saying to my husband, and I'm praying like this, just keep us upright, just keep us upright, just keep us upright. And on the road, right? And I said to my husband, why don't you pull back on the road? And he said, there's too big of a difference. And if I hit it, there's a good chance it'll just slide all the way across the road and end up in worse situation. So I was like, when I stopped praying, just keep us upright, and said, help us get back on the road. And like 5 seconds later, there was a little spot where he was able to just kind of ease us back up on the road. And I could feel it. God's like, so you get it? Like, you prayed to stay up. I was keeping you upright. You really wanted to be up on the road? That's what you should pray for.
Wow. And that's a good example, actually. That's very, very clear. Ask for what you want.
Yeah. And talk about it. Yeah. So,
don't just kind of think, oh, I'd like to be famous. Say, I want to write a book, and I want to do this, and whatever it is you want. But, yeah.
And what is help for me, people will say manifesting and faith. And the difference I see is often God has given me things. Like, I didn't think I'm going to write a book. He said, I want you to write a book.
Right.
That kind of thing. But there are things I do want to do. And I will ask for help doing that too. But often what my greatest joy comes from doing the things that
He's told you to do.
He's told me to do.
Right.
And I have faith I can do that, because he wouldn't tell me to do it if I couldn't do it.
So what suggestions do you have for the listeners to start them on the path to finding their best life, to doing the things that they're really meant to be doing?
However they reach out to the divine, or just use their intuition. I honestly say, look, your day is your life. Like, you just keep repeating the same days, right? If your life is going to change, your days have to change, and where your focus has to change, and it can be gradual. So that's why I recommend every day saying, what do you want me to do? Or what should I do? Or however you pray that prayer. And that's when my life changed, as little things on my day, and things I've been praying for or really needing. It doesn't even seem like taking someone a meal. I didn't know that was going to turn into my best friend.
Right.
Right. That's the kind of thing that just do it, and be open.
So if you're saying you're starting your day or ending your day, what should I do? So that's, what am I going to do? What am I going to do tomorrow?
Yes.
Here's what I need to do. Here's what I think I need to do. And then you just wait for that intuition, wait for that feeling to say, this is the one you need to do.
Right. And or add this.
Do you question them? I mean, you said you did sometimes.
Yeah. And sometimes it took me a while to learn to really recognize the spirit, but I started in the 20s trying to recognize the divine. And I have a few tips. And one is, after you've prayed, there's going to be thoughts come in your head. Well, you just said the prayer, pay attention to those thoughts. If you need to journal or whatever, write it down. Yeah. And second, just be aware a thought will often come three or four times. I'll have the thought and I'll think, oh, I don't need to do that. Like invite someone to dinner. Oh, no, nope. It's Monday. I'm not inviting them. They just came Friday, like that. Right. And I'll keep saying, nah, because I think, oh, this isn't God. This is my ADHD speaking. And then I'll have, the third time it comes, I think, this is probably God. And then I'll say, is this you? And I'll have that sense of peace and assurance. Yes. And then I'll write it down and do it. And sometimes he's very clear and concise. So before we went to Alaska, I was afraid to go to Alaska because it's dark and it's cold and there's grizzly bears. So I had bear spray and I had a satellite. I was ready. And I said, what else do I need to do? And that was my prayer. Is there anything else I need to do? And it was take a brisk walk every day. That's the thought that popped into my head right after I said that prayer. Now, I know the word brisk. I never have ever. I mean, have you ever in a casual conversation used the word brisk? I haven't. But I knew what it meant, right? I didn't have to take a jogging. But also, it wasn't a leisurely stroll. I needed to get out there and get my heart rate up. And at the end of our mission, we actually spent 9 months north of the Arctic Circle without a car, walked everywhere. And so, I had to be in shape for that. Yeah, and I was.
That brisk walk paid off.
Yeah. So there it is. It's like, yeah. So if a thought keeps coming back and it's a good thing, then just try doing it. And start saying, is this God? If you haven't learned to really recognize that voice yet. And often it'll be very clear and concise. And often you'll be asked to do some kind of service when you're praying for something. And I say, whatever that is, do it. Because that's probably where your answer is going to be.
Okay. So, and who knows what that answer is going to be, but you're going to find it when you're doing the things that you're told to do.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about being a Christian mystic.
Someone else wrote a book about it and I thought, well, what is that? And I looked it up and it said, a Christian mystic is one who is actively seeking to always be in God's presence. And I thought, well, that is definitely what I'm doing. So I fit the definition. I'm claiming that title.
Okay. So it's not, I can't say I know anything about mysticism, or in my mind, that's kind of a magical kind of title.
Magic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think the difference between following God and thinking things through is often we're asked to do things that don't seem logical. And often the results seem miraculous. And so in that sense, I think mysticism applies because we are doing things that to our logical mind don't make any sense. And then we have these amazing results.
Okay. And how do you feel now looking back at your life, looking after 8 kids as they grew up, busy times in the high-tech industry, and now your life, which I would say is beyond retirement because you're doing so many other things. How do you compare them?
Well, what's similar is that service, that taking care of people. And what's different is I'm tired. I'm not doing as much. Often I'm sitting down and saying, I could have done 10 times as much 15 years ago. I didn't think I'd get tired, but I am. And yeah, it's a surprise. So I had another thought that had to do with, I forget it because I'm old. Now I forgot.
So as time goes on, you get a little bit more tired. There's a fewer things that you can do, but that means that you spend more time figuring out what the important things are. Is that correct?
I do. And my husband and I actually spent some time thinking about this a couple years ago. Like, what do we have to do? If, as a Christian, you believe Christ might be coming again, and what should we be doing? And it first of all was stuff your house full of food. And second, spend as much time as you can helping other people. And so we do try to keep our lives very simple so that we can help other people a lot. And we're grateful that we had our house stuffed full of food just because before the pandemic. We also had paper goods. So we weren't worried about toilet paper. We were just like, we're ready.
So I can see that you got the right message. Get your toilet paper.
Get your toilet paper. It's just enjoyable. I think as people are approaching retirement, the idea that there's so much you can still be bringing to the world, that you especially have learned so much. There's the number 40 in the Bible, and it means a time of preparation. And if I look between when you became an adult in your early 20s and when you're retiring in your 60s, that those are 40 years of preparation. And now God can really use you. I mean, not saying don't go golfing, but look for how else he might be able to use you. And I think that's just, and he will use your talents that make you happy. I have a friend who teaches ukulele, and she loves music and she loves playing. I have a friend who has 6 dinner sets. Well, I have one. I hate to cook. Well, she's the type of person that she'll be, and she'll say, I just decided to invite 15 people over tonight. So come on over. And you're like, okay. And so everybody's talent and what brings them joy is different. And you've spent 40 years getting ready, and now you have a lot of time to give. My mom's 95. I was sitting down the other day saying, what do I want to do with the next 20 years?
Yep. And there's so much to do if you just...
Yes. In a very slow, tired way. Yes.
Well, and that's okay. It's okay to take your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. Thanks very much, Margaret, for having a chat with me today. I don't think that it was too strenuous, so
no,
that should be okay
for me. Yeah,
I really appreciate getting to know the kind of things that you do and how God has helped you, I guess, in creating your life through retirement. I think that's wonderful.
Thanks.
And that's it for this episode of Beyond Retirement. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Are you ready to start rocking your retirement? Head on over to www.beyondretirement.ca/rocking it and sign up to plan out your own roadmap for retirement. Don't wait till it's too late.